For centuries, the galaxy believed humanity was gone. The ancient records said Earth had fallen during the Great Collapse. The surviving human colonies were erased, their signals lost in deep space. Over time, the other species grew confident, even arrogant. Without humans, the stars were calm. Trade was rich, borders were stable, and wars were small and predictable. But everything changed in one quiet moment. It began on the edge of the neutral zone, a dark, forgotten part of the galaxy. No one lived there anymore, only broken satellites and drifting wreckage. A small Varn patrol ship was scanning the region when the crew saw something strange. Space itself seemed to ripple, like a mirror touched by invisible hands. At first, they thought it was a distortion, maybe an unstable wormhole or a collapsing stargate. But then the light began to bend. A dark shape started to form in the emptiness. The ship's scanners failed to identify it. The engines of the patrol ship sputtered and died. Every system went silent. Then, it appeared. A massive black vessel emerged from the void, its hull covered in strange, glowing marks. The crew stared in disbelief. The ship was larger than any vessel ever recorded. Even the Varn flagship, one of the galaxy's biggest dreadnoughts, looked like a child's toy beside it. The crew whispered among themselves. "Whose ship is that?" one asked. "What empire could build such a thing?" But the answer came from their commander, whose face turned pale. This design," he said quietly, "it is human." Those words froze the entire crew. Humans impossible. They were extinct. Their cities turned to dust centuries ago. The commander ordered a full retreat, but before the ship could move, their communication system lit up. A faint signal came through, no voice, just a sound. A heartbeat, slow, steady, human. Moments later, the black warship's main cannon turned toward them. A single blue light flared at its center. The commander screamed, "Evasive action!" But it was too late. A bright beam of energy cut through the patrol ship like paper. Then silence returned to the stars. The destruction of that tiny Varn vessel was noticed across several systems. The signal logs were sent to the Galactic Council. Within hours, rumors began to spread. The council gathered in panic, filled with ambassadors, generals, and old scholars who remembered the stories of the human wars. At first, they argued. "It must be a trick," said the Zelth ambassador. "No human ships exist anymore." "But the energy reading," replied another. "It matches pre-collapse human signatures. No other species uses such power sources." "They cannot have survived," the Re-10 general hissed. "We destroyed their worlds." Then an old scientist stood up. His eyes were tired, but his voice was calm. "You destroyed their worlds," he said, "but not their will." The council chamber fell silent. No one dared to speak again. Reports flooded in from the border sectors. Mining stations were gone. Communication relays were burned out. A merchant convoy vanished. In every case, the last recorded data was the same. An enormous ship passing silently through the void. They called it the Leviathan. Days later, the galaxy watched in terror as the Leviathan entered open space, visible to every major system. The warship drifted above the glowing rings of a gas giant, its dark metal reflecting the planet's light. Alien fleets scrambled to make contact. Dozens of messages were sent, peace offers, warnings, demands, but none were answered. Instead, the ship broadcasted one transmission across all known frequencies. It was not in alien code. It was in English. "This galaxy has forgotten," the message said. "It is time to remember." The voice was deep, cold, and human. Every translator confirmed it. The shock was instant. Some called it fake. Others called it prophecy. But everyone felt the same thing, fear. In the following days, panic spread like fire. Empires closed their borders. Fleets were recalled from exploration zones. Merchants refused to travel. Entire planets held emergency meetings. For the first time in centuries, every civilization spoke the same name: humanity. On the third day, a small alien news drone managed to capture a closer view of the Leviathan. Its footage shook the galaxy. The ship's hull was scarred, covered with ancient symbols of Earth. The faded flag, the old star insignia, and the nameplate burned into the metal. UHS Leviathan, the unified human ship. No one had seen such markings for over 500 years. The drone's video showed more. Massive weapon arrays that glowed with silent energy, engines that pulsed with strange blue light, and a bridge tower that looked more like a fortress than a command center. The ship was not designed for exploration or diplomacy. It was built for war. Every empire began to prepare for the worst. Fleets were deployed. Defenses were activated. Yet deep down, everyone knew it would not matter. The humans had always been different, brilliant, unpredictable, and relentless. They had built machines that could reshape worlds and weapons that could erase fleets in seconds. If even one human warship survived, then the galaxy was in danger, and so the waiting began. Weeks passed, but the Leviathan did not attack. It did not move. It just hovered there, dark and silent, as if watching. Some believed it was damaged, others thought it was waiting for something or someone. Then one quiet evening, every satellite in the sector blinked out. A light appeared from the Leviathan's front cannon, bright, pure, and terrifying. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy remembered what fear felt like. The next morning, the entire communication grid across 5 systems went dark. When the signal returned, a single message appeared on every screen. "We are humanity. We have returned." And that was the moment the galaxy realized the peace they enjoyed for centuries was over. Something ancient had awakened, something powerful, something human. The Leviathan had arrived. For 3 long days after the Leviathan's broadcast, the galaxy did not sleep. Every system, every capital, and every colony trembled under one shared word: humanity. The Varn Dominion declared a full military alert. The Council of Varus went into lockdown. Trade routes closed and civilian ships vanished from the stars. Fear spread faster than light itself. Governments began to hide the truth. They claimed the Leviathan was a hoax, a ghost signal, or a forgotten relic of a dead species. But the people had already seen the images. The massive warship, the old Earth markings, and that calm human voice saying, "It is time to remember." No lie could erase that. The Galactic News Network tried to play recordings again, but every time they aired the Leviathan footage, the screens went black. Someone or something was blocking transmissions. Every attempt to trace the interference led to the same source, the Leviathan itself. It was not only watching, it was controlling what the galaxy saw. In the Varn High Command, Admiral Zor paced across his strategy room. Around him floated holograms of burning colonies and missing fleets. "How can one ship do this?" he shouted. A young officer replied softly, "Sir, it does not act alone. We found traces of human signal relays near the outer rim. They must have outposts." Zor's red eyes narrowed. "Then find them. I want every human trace destroyed before this becomes chaos." But it was already chaos. Across space, old stories began to return. The legends of human wars, the Terran uprisings, the siege of the Orion Gate. Entire races had once united just to stop humans from spreading beyond Sol. They called it the Great Containment War. Billions had died, yet even in defeat, humanity refused to surrender. They had vanished, yes, but not peacefully. They had promised to return, and now it seemed they had kept that promise. In the capital world of Varus, the council met in emergency session. 12 alien leaders sat around a round table of light. The air was thick with fear. The Re-10 representative spoke first, her voice trembling. "If this is truly a human ship, we must contact it. Offer peace." The Varn delegate slammed his claws on the table. "Peace? You would negotiate with monsters?" "Monsters?" she replied. "We called them that once before, and they burned our fleets to ash. If they are back, we cannot fight them." The council erupted in argument, voices overlapping, accusations flying. Finally, the Grand Chancellor silenced them. "We will send a message," he declared. "A direct signal of peace from the Galactic Council. If they answer, perhaps they remember reason." The message was sent. It traveled across hundreds of light years, bouncing through communication gates until it reached the dark sector where the Leviathan floated. For 2 days, there was no reply. Then, without warning, the Leviathan moved, slowly like a shadow drifting through the void. It changed course and headed straight for the Varus system, the very heart of galactic power. When the Council received the coordinates, panic broke out. Armies mobilized, fleets assembled. Every major power sent warships to defend Varus. It became the largest military gathering in centuries. Thousands of ships formed a shining wall across the stars, but deep down every commander knew the truth. They were afraid. On the flagship Retin Glory, Admiral Nazca watched the tactical screen. "Distance to human ship?" she asked. 3 light hours, her officer replied. "Any communications?" "None, Admiral. It does not respond. It only watches." "Then we strike first," her order echoed across the fleet. The combined forces of 20 worlds aimed their cannons toward the dark void where the Leviathan was approaching. Then with one voice command, they fired. Thousands of energy blasts lit up space. The stars disappeared in the blinding storm of light and plasma. Every monitor shook under the force of it. The bombardment lasted 2 full minutes. When the firing stopped, silence fell. The admirals waited for the scanners to clear. The smoke of war slowly drifted away, and then they saw it. The Leviathan was still there, untouched. Not a single mark. Its dark hull shimmered faintly, absorbing the last traces of energy. Then a soft pulse of light ran across its side as if it were breathing. Admiral Nazca whispered, That is not possible." Seconds later, the Leviathan fired back, but not at them. It sent one silent wave of energy, a pulse invisible to the eye. Every ship's system shut down at once. Engines died. Weapons froze. Communications went dead. Within seconds, the entire fleet was powerless, drifting helplessly in space. Panic broke out. Pilots screamed through comms that no longer worked. Officers hit buttons that did nothing. Lights flickered and faded. Then through the static, a human voice came across every channel. Calm. Cold. Powerful. "You attacked what you do not understand. Remember this moment when you speak of fear." And with that, the Leviathan disappeared. One moment it was there. The next, only darkness remained. It had vanished without leaving a trace. Across the galaxy, silence ruled. The largest fleet in history had been disabled in seconds, and no one died. Humanity had chosen not to destroy them. It was a warning. In the following hours, systems slowly came back online. Warships regained power. But when they looked at their data, one strange thing was found. Every ship, every satellite, and every station now carried a single digital mark, a small symbol burned into their systems, the flag of old Earth. No one knew how it was placed there. But everyone understood what it meant. Humanity was not back for revenge. They were back for dominance. And from that day forward, the galaxy stopped calling humans extinct. They began calling them something else, inevitable. When the Leviathan disappeared, silence spread across the galaxy once more. But it was not the silence of peace, it was the silence before something greater. In every alien capital, leaders gathered again, whispering in fear. The reports were clear. Humanity had disabled an entire galactic fleet without firing a single lethal shot. Every system bore the mark of Earth's flag. No one could erase it, no one could trace it, and no one could explain it. The galaxy had just been humbled by ghosts. For the first time in history, the empires stopped fighting each other. The Varn, the Retin, the Zelth, and even the cold Aurelian Syndicate all sent envoys to the Galactic Council. Their question was the same: what do the humans want? The Council decided to send one final transmission, a request for peace, an apology for the attack, and a plea for understanding. They broadcasted it on every open channel, and then they waited. Hours passed, then days. No answer. Until, on the 3rd day, all communication systems flickered at once. Screens across the galaxy turned black. Holograms collapsed into static. And then a single human face appeared. He looked older, gray hair, tired eyes, but steady and calm. His uniform bore the faded insignia of the United Human Fleet. When he spoke, his voice was deep and steady, echoing through every device in the galaxy. "To the species of this galaxy, you once believed humanity was gone. You were wrong." The words were simple, but they struck like thunder. Every alien, every soldier, every citizen stopped and listened. You called us savages, destroyers, and monsters. You built walls around the stars to keep us out. You burned our colonies and silenced our children. And when we vanished, you called it peace. But we never died. We learned, we built, we evolved. And while you argued over power and pride, we found something greater: understanding. The image shifted. Behind the man, the bridge of the Leviathan glowed faintly. Dozens of human officers stood in silence, their faces hard and expressionless. "For centuries we watched you. We saw your wars, your greed, your endless fear. You ruled through control, not courage. You forgot what it means to fight for survival. We did not." Then he leaned forward slightly. His eyes were cold but not cruel. "We do not seek war. We seek balance. The galaxy grew arrogant in our absence. That ends now." As he spoke, the stars behind him changed. Maps began to appear on the holographic screens across the galaxy. They showed human signals, faint but real, from dozens of hidden sectors. Humanity had colonies, hundreds of them. Entire worlds beyond known space. The alien leaders stared in disbelief. They had believed humans were extinct. Now it seemed the opposite was true. Humanity had spread farther than any other species, and they had stayed silent until they were ready. The human continued speaking. "You do not need to fear extinction. You need to fear ignorance. We will not conquer your worlds, but we will not bow to your laws. The galaxy belongs to no one, but it will remember those who earned their place." And then, for a moment, his tone softened. "There was a time we admired you. We wanted to join you. We believed unity was possible. But when you closed your doors, we opened the stars. You feared us because you could not understand us. And now you fear us again because we returned stronger than ever." Every screen across the galaxy went quiet for a moment. Then the man said the final words, ones that would echo across centuries. "You once taught us fear. Now we teach you what fear truly means." The transmission ended. The screens went black again. But something strange happened next. All across the galaxy, ships and satellites began to pick up a signal. Not a voice, not data. It was music. Human music. Soft, beautiful, melancholic. A single piano melody drifted through space, played from the Leviathan itself. It was an old Earth song, one of mourning and hope. No one understood its words, but everyone felt its weight. In the great city of Varus, alien children listened to the melody through open comm lines. Some cried without knowing why. The song carried something alien to them, sorrow mixed with pride. And while the galaxy listened, the Leviathan appeared again, this time above a barren, empty planet once destroyed during the old wars. It began to descend slowly, its hull glowing faintly in the dark. From orbit, the planet's surface cracked with light. The Leviathan's engines dug deep into the crust, releasing something into the air. Tiny drones carrying seeds, machines, and data. The planet was being rebuilt. Life returned to its ashes. The message was clear. Humanity could destroy, but it could also rebuild. The Galactic Council watched in silence. Some saw hope. Others saw power. But all understood that this was not revenge. It was dominance through mercy. Deep inside the Leviathan, Captain Elias Forn stood at the center of the bridge. He was the man who spoke to the galaxy. His eyes were fixed on the glowing planet below. An officer approached him quietly. "Captain," she said, "they will either fear us, or they will join us." Forn did not turn. "Both," he replied softly. "Because that is the only way the galaxy learns." Outside, the Leviathan's lights dimmed as it rose back into orbit. Then, without warning, it vanished again into hyperspace, silent and unstoppable. In its absence, the galaxy was left to face its reflection, the memory of its arrogance and the proof that humanity had not vanished, only evolved. For the first time in centuries, every empire understood one truth: the humans were not ghosts. They were the storm that had been waiting, and the storm had just spoken. The galaxy was no longer the same. The Leviathan had spoken, and its voice still echoed in every corner of the stars. Entire empires stood silent, unsure of what to do. Every world, every station, every ship carried the symbol of Earth burned into their systems. It was not a threat. It was a reminder. The message was clear. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never forget them again. On the capital world of Varus, the council met for the final time. The chambers that once buzzed with noise were now filled with quiet fear. The Grand Chancellor sat alone at the center table. Around him, the holograms of the other delegates flickered in uneasy silence. "What are we to do now?" asked the REIT-10 representative softly. The Varn admiral gritted his teeth. "We prepare for war. If they rise again, we must unite." "Unite?" Another laughed bitterly. "We could not unite against each other for 100 years. What makes you think we can stand against them?" The admiral looked down, unable to answer. In the corner of the chamber, a young scientist named Era stood. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "They rebuilt a dead world," she said. "I saw the footage. The Leviathan brought life to dust. They could have destroyed us, but they didn't. That means something." The others turned to her, surprised. You think they want peace? Ara nodded. No, I think they want us to remember who they are. Outside the chambers, massive screens displayed images from the reborn planet, the one the Leviathan had restored. Plants were growing in the soil. The air was breathable again. Drones floated through the sky working silently. No humans were seen, but their presence was felt everywhere. It was not a warning. It was a lesson. Far beyond Varus, the Leviathan traveled through deep space. Its engines left trails of blue light that shimmered against the darkness. Inside, the bridge was quiet. The crew worked in silence, surrounded by the faint hum of ancient machinery. Captain Elias Vorn stood by the viewport, watching the stars drift by. His reflection stared back at him, an old soldier from a forgotten war. His first officer, Mara, approached quietly. Captain, the Council is in panic. Our message has reached every corner of the galaxy. Vorn nodded. Good. They needed to hear it. What if they prepare to fight back? She asked. He smiled faintly. Then they will remember who taught them fear. He turned to the navigation officer. Prepare the next jump. To where, sir? Earth, Vorn said softly. It is time to go home. As the Leviathan entered hyperspace, something extraordinary happened. Across the galaxy, long-dormant machines began to awaken. Satellites, probes, and colonies once thought dead. They came online one by one, all bearing the same code, UHF Protocol Rebirth. Hidden human outposts that had been silent for centuries suddenly lit up. Worlds once forgotten began to glow with life again. The galaxy realized the truth: humanity had never been gone. They had been watching, rebuilding, spreading quietly beyond the reach of others. The Leviathan was not alone. It was just the first to arrive. Weeks passed and strange reports began to surface. An unknown fleet was seen near the Orion cluster. Massive ships with human markings. A small alien mining station received a gift. Crates filled with human technology far beyond anything they could understand. A derelict colony world found itself surrounded by drones repairing its atmosphere overnight. It became clear, humans were not here for destruction. They were reshaping the balance of power. Some called it mercy, others called it control. But everyone agreed on one thing: the galaxy was trembling. On Varus, the people began to whisper stories again. Children played with toy ships shaped like the Leviathan. Traders told tales of human ghosts who helped lost vessels. Even the fearful began to admire them. The word human no longer meant extinct, it meant inevitable. But for the rulers of the galaxy, that realization brought sleepless nights. If humanity could return once, they could return again. And if they ever chose war, no one would survive. The Council sent one last desperate transmission into deep space. To the people of Earth, it said, if you are listening, we understand. We remember. We wish to coexist. There was no answer, only static. Then, hours later, a faint voice broke through the signal. It was human, calm and distant. Coexistence begins with memory. You have remembered. That is enough for now. And the signal faded. In the darkness of space, far from all known worlds, the Leviathan floated near a dim, dying star. Captain Vorn stood alone, watching the sun's last light fade. His ship had seen centuries of war, yet it still stood strong, like the people who built it. He thought of Earth, of the billions who had suffered during the collapse, of the long exile that turned humans into legends. He thought of how the galaxy had forgotten them, and how easily they had reminded it. Are we gods to them now? Mara asked quietly behind him. Vorn shook his head. No, we are what we have always been, human. That is enough. He turned toward the bridge crew. Send the order, he said. What order, sir? Vorn looked out at the stars. Begin the quiet watch. Let them believe we have left. Let them build their peace. But if they ever forget again, we will remind them. The Leviathan's engines flared one last time. Slowly, the massive ship began to sink into the star's light, its silhouette fading until only the symbol of Earth remained glowing against the sun. Then it was gone for generations after. Alien children would look up at the night sky and whisper the same words their parents once feared to say aloud. The humans are still watching. And though no one ever saw the Leviathan again, some nights when the stars were quiet and the sky was clear, a faint blue light could be seen crossing the edge of the galaxy, silent and endless. It was not a dream. It was not a myth. It was the reminder of a truth the galaxy had learned too late. Humanity does not vanish. Humanity waits, and when it returns, the galaxy trembles.